Welcome to Against the Spread, where we here at Sportsnet pick games for you against the spread, NFL games specifically. And it's only been 5 weeks. We're now in week 6. But might be the time, Gilo, that we start bragging that we are now 12 games above 500 in a season that was super unpredictable, no home field advantage, although some places there's kind of one. You have the real threat of COVID as to not only what it does to the league, but who's going to play. Oh, and also, so many players have been injured. Should we start to pat ourselves on the back at this point?
Yeah, I think we've got enough of a sample size that we can say that this is not a fluke, and we're doing our jobs the right way. So good for us. And as we do this, undoubtedly, we will now tank this week. That's definitely happening.
I was thinking the same thing. Super producer Drew is writing down this time code so that he can replay this back at a later date. He will not be replaying our analysis of our first game back at any time because it's not going to be very long because I'm not going to spend a lot of time watching or thinking about this game. It's Detroit Lions going to Florida to play Jacksonville. The home dogs are the Jacksonville Jaguars. This is going to be some bad football. If you were to bet on it, where would you lean?
I think that's the key. If I were to bet on it, I'd probably bet Lions, just because I think we're starting to see a little bit more of the Jags, who we thought they were going to be, rather than a surprise team. And the Lions, they're not perfect, but I think they could pull this one out.
I'm actually going to go the other way. Two bad teams. I'll take the team at home with the points, and so I'll go with the dog and hope that it's a close but terrible football game, which is what I'm expecting. A bigger spread in a game that has much more intrigue, a game that we're finally getting. Denver going to New England. The Patriots, we talked about this game last week. It didn't end up happening, as viewers of this well know. Hopefully it ends up happening by the time we get to Sunday. 9.5 points are the Patriots' favorites, even though we don't necessarily know for sure who's going to be available, not just because of health, because of COVID-19.
Yeah, and I think I said this last week, and I'll say it again. I think it depends entirely on the status of Cam Newton. Without Cam Newton, we saw how bad the Patriots' offense can be. I don't think either Brian Hoyer or Jared Stidham are the answer at this point in time. So that would mean that 9.5 is a huge number for me. With Cam there, it's a much different story because the offense looks way different, way better. And I think with him in the lineup, they'd be able to take care of business against a really banged up Broncos team. But that's a huge one for me. And so I wouldn't, we're talking here Wednesday. I would definitely wait before putting anything on this game just because of that uncertainty.
Yeah, and if it's 9.5 now, I assume this number will swing if we get some certainty before the game as to what his availability will be. Even still, at this number, I'm staying away and if anything, putting money on Denver because Cam's available. He's been negative for a couple days. Well, how many days over the last little bit has he practiced? How many days has he been in the facility, had the ability to watch film? And really, how many days has New England known he's going to be available and been able to scheme offensively for an offense that's led by him and not Brian Hoyer or Jarrett Stidham? And so for those reasons, I think even if New England takes care of business and wins, I don't think it's going to be by 10 points. So I'll take Denver. Much closer spread in this next game. The 4-1 Chicago Bears are underdogs. And you can tell the surprise in my voice. Maybe that will tell where I'm leaning. Going to Carolina, who's been frisky, 3-2. Robbie Anderson, a must pick up in your fantasy league if you haven't already. But still, Carolina favored at home over Chicago. It surprises me a little bit. Does it surprise you at all?
Well, I'm not really that surprised. I mean, talking about surprises, these are two teams that I think have surprised everybody so far this season. I didn't think Chicago would have, I don't think they'd be halfway to 4 wins at this point in time. And now here we are and they've got 4. But I think there's one of these teams that I actually believe is living up to who they are. And it's the Panthers. I don't think it's Chicago at all. I was just looking at Football Outsiders DVOA, and they have the Bears ranked as one of the worst 4-1 teams of all time. And the Panthers, I think we're starting to see Matt Rule and Joe Brady kind of getting their offense going. Teddy Bridgewater looks good with Robbie Anderson, you mentioned, and DJ Moore finally had a good game coming out, and Mike Davis is the bell cow. So I'm kind of buying what the Panthers are selling at this point in time. And even after watching the Bears beat the Bucs on Thursday night, I mean, that was really unconvincing when it comes to wins. So I'm going to buy the Panthers. I don't like the Bears. I'm going to take the home favorites by 2.5.
I'm actually going to take the Road Dogs, and I love the stat about them being the worst 4-1 team of all time. I want to see like whoever the runner-up was on that list. But even though they're not this good, they've been good against the spread. 3-2 against the spread, 2-0 against the spread on the road. So I will take the points, and I'm not bothered by the fact they have to play on the road against Carolina. I'm going to take Chicago in that matchup. For me, what is shaping up to be the game of the week, assuming Baker Mayfield is able to play at a high level because he's got some banged up ribs. Cleveland going to Pittsburgh, AFC North divisional matchup, could very well go a long way in deciding who wins this division. This line started at 5. It's now 3.5 in favor of the home Pittsburgh Steelers. Who do you like?
The spread makes this one really interesting. I think that's the key factor in this game is, that, and like you mentioned, Baker's injury. I think a rib injury is really tough, especially when you're coming up against a Steelers defense that blitzes and rushes the passer like they do. They can really get some nasty hits on Baker Mayfield. But it's that spread that really makes me think twice about where I'm going here. And because it's such a vicious and fierce rivalry. This is the first time Myles Garrett is going to be playing in this matchup since what happened last year with Mason Rudolph, and I think it's going to be heated, and I think that's going to make the game maybe closer than it would under normal circumstances. And given that it's a division that's playing really well right now, I like this game to be close. And if it was 2.5, I might think about going Steelers here, but I think it's going to be a field game, and the 3.5 is making me lean Browns. So I'm going to pick Browns here. I like this game to be really close, right down to the end.
I'm going to go Steelers, and this one's tough because I actually really do like both teams, although I wouldn't be surprised if, in a month or 2 months, we're looking back at the 4-1 Browns and saying, should they be in the conversation for the worst 4-1 team of all time with the Bears? But I do think they're really good. But what hasn't been good is Baker Mayfield in fourth quarters. 7 is his QBR in the last 2 weeks in the fourth quarter. And I do think it's going to be a close game. And whether or not he is healthy, he's mentioned the fact that he's not a wuss, so he'll be fine. Even if he is healthy, I don't really trust him and the Browns close game at the end the way I do Big Ben and the Steelers. And crazy to think that this is the first time in his career Roethlisberger has started 4-0. This is a really good Steelers team.
Yeah,
Shout out to Chase Claypool with a massive game, both in fantasy and in real life. The Canadians playing really well. So I do like Pittsburgh to win this one. If the number was still 5, I would be less comfortable, but 3.5, I still think the Steelers are the better team. We'll see if the Atlanta Falcons are a better team now that they have a new head coach. Dan Quinn is gone, Raheem Morris steps in, and now that they've got a new GM, which is to me an odd move, moving from a GM mid-season, but Thomas Dimitroff, also Canadian, now also out of a job. They go to Minnesota, we're 3.5-point favorites at home. I don't really get a great feeling, pro or con, about Minnesota, but I've been down on the Falcons. 3.5 is not a lot of points. Is that enough for you to feel comfortable with Minnesota in this spot?
Yeah, I think uncomfortable is the perfect word here, because I don't feel comfortable picking either of these teams. You mentioned before about the coaching change. I don't think that's going to make much of a difference here. I think the Falcons are just a bad team, especially on defense. It's a little surprising the offense has been as bad as it is given the weapons that they have. But the defense is just in shambles, injury-wise and talent-wise. And I think the 1-4 record of the Vikings has been a bit harsh. They hung with the Seahawks on Sunday night in a thriller. The offense has been good, especially on the ground. They've got some good passing weapons. The defense is bad, but I think it'll be enough here to take advantage of what has been, a victim of every offense in that Falcons defense at this point in time. So 3.5 at home. Bad defense, that makes me feel pretty comfortable, reluctantly, I guess, or ironic I use that word, but for the Vikings.
I'm actually going to go the other way with Atlanta. And, Raheem Morris's linebackers was the only real unit that was playing decent football for the Falcons. Now he's looking over the entire team. And I think the Falcons might be maybe the best 0-5 team of all time, which is something no one would ever categorize.
No.
But
best and 0-5 don't
go
well together.
No,
but I get your point.
I just think they shouldn't be 0-5. I mean, they got mesmerized by football and they lost to Dallas. Their offense has started really well. They just haven't been able to close football games, partially because their defense has been leaky. But I think there's enough talent in that locker room to beat a Minnesota team that has been really up and down. I think the Falcons have probably put together more good quarters of football than Minnesota has at this point. They just don't have the win to show for it. So I am going to take the points, and I'm going to take the Falcons in that roster, which I think is somewhat more impressive and has underachieved than maybe, the firing wakes them up a little bit. The Ravens, on the flip side, have only lost one game. But is it fair to say that they've underachieved? Like, they haven't looked amazing, and Lamar Jackson has just been like an average quarterback after being the MVP. They go to Philly, who certainly has underachieved, but have showing some signs of life in the last couple weeks. Had a tough loss against Pittsburgh. The line is 7.5 points for Baltimore on the road. Is that too many points? Are you going to lay some money on your favorite Philadelphia Eagles?
It's interesting because I think you're right about the Ravens. I don't think, despite a really dominant win over the Bengals, it was mostly the defense that did take care of business on Sunday. I think the Ravens offense is still trying to figure out, what works best for them in 2020. But the reason I am going to put money on the Eagles here is because that is a huge spread for a road team. If this was less than a touchdown, it's something I'd think about with the Ravens, but at more than a touchdown at Philadelphia, where they're now going to have some fans, so there might be a little bit of a home field advantage. And like you said, Wentz is figuring it out with, more practice squad guys like Travis Fulgham, who lit up the Steelers on Sunday. I do lean with the home underdog here, and I feel pretty comfortable doing it, actually.
I'm actually going to go with the favorite and the Ravens, and we've been different on a couple. And to me, I'm still worried about that Philadelphia offensive line and the fact that Carson Wentz has been sacked a league high 19 times. Baltimore and that defense come to town looking to get after the passer, and I don't think that's necessarily a recipe for success. And so I do think that Baltimore can win this one pretty easily. Houston goes to Tennessee. This is a close one. -3 is the line, started at 2.5. Tennessee, evidently, what you need to do to play inspiring football is have your building shut down and practice out of high school, because they put a beat down on the Buffalo Bills on Tuesday night.
Yeah.
But will the short rest catch up with them in a scenario where they're playing Houston, hosting Houston, but playing a team that's got some more rest? Where are you leaning?
I'm kind of surprised that the spread is what it is, given what we saw from the Titans on Tuesday night. I think they were really dominant, and they put it all together. It seemed like the rest and the break had not only paid off, but it seemed they were motivated, like they had been slighted, in being shut down for the time that they were shut down. And good for the Texans for getting the win that they did on Sunday, but I'm not buying the Texans still. I think the defense is still really bad. And the Titans look to be living up to the undefeated record that they have. The offense is good. Tannehill's playing out of his mind again, something I predicted wouldn't happen. Derrick Henry is Derrick Henry, and the defense is making plays. We saw it against Buffalo. So at home against a Houston team that has struggled, they even did it in that win against Jacksonville for a bit. I will take the Titans all day here.
Yeah, I really struggle with this one because Tuesday to Sunday is tough. Like, Tuesday is normally your day off in the NFL, and now that's the day you're playing, and you got to get ready to play a game on Sunday. But the Texans aren't very good, and I'm not sure the Titans are as good as the record. They're 1-3 against the spread for gambling purposes, but the Texans are 1-4 against the spread, and they're 1-4 period. They're just bad, and so I will go with Tennessee. my gut says that just the Tuesday to Sunday turnaround in a league that's so competitive like the NFL is really, really tough. We would never ask high schoolers to have a turnaround that fast, never mind professionals. But against the Texans, I'm not really sure it mattered. And my thought process last week was that, well, how's Tennessee going to put together a good performance? They haven't been in their building. You know, half of their organization has COVID-19. Didn't seem to matter. So I'm going to, I guess, make up for my mistake last week and go Tennessee here. I think I might be making a mistake in this next one, but maybe you can either confirm what I'm thinking or talk me out of it. The Bengals go to Indy. Indy is a -8 favorite at home. Who do you like in the 1 o'clock matchup?
I mean, I know I made a mistake last week in taking the Bengals. Like that 13.5 spread at the time against the Ravens looked like, one to avoid, but they really just no-showed against the Ravens, especially that offense. That said, I am going to take the Bengals here because I just don't trust the Colts offense enough. Phillip Rivers has just, this is what Phillip Rivers is right now, like a quarterback whose arm isn't what it used to be, and I don't think he's adjusted. Look at Ben Roethlisberger, a player who is adjusting to, losing arm talent. I don't think Rivers has done that at all, and he continues to make boneheaded mistakes. And the Colts don't really have that identity on offense as a result. They have a good defense, but do I trust them to win a game by this amount? I don't really at this point in time. So if I was going to bet on this game, I'd bet on the underdog.
Yeah, I'm not sure where T.Y. Hilton has been all year.
Yeah.
Like, if you've seen him, let me know. Phillip Rivers, quite frankly, looks washed. Like, he needs to become a game manager with smarts like Roethlisberger and Drew Brees has. But instead, it seems like he thinks he's still, able to make all the throws like an Aaron Rodgers. And that's not the case. And quite frankly, he doesn't have the receiver talent around him. And the size of receiver he had in San Diego to make up for his lack of ability to put balls in tight windows. And so I am going to take the Bengals because, again, might be blasphemous, but as of today, October 14th, I think the better quarterback in this game is playing for the Cincinnati Bengals.
For sure.
And that is rookie Joe Burrow, and not like outside Hall of Fame candidate, I suppose, Phillip Rivers.
Yeah, he's not doing himself any favors here.
Certainly isn't. He doesn't have a ring. No. So I'm sure some Eli Manning truthers are going to say why he's not a Hall of Famer. But he has compiled some nice stats. So let us know in the comments if Phillip Rivers is a Hall of Famer. Speaking of Eli Manning, the guy who replaced him in New York and kind of has a lot of the same mannerisms and game style as him in a weird way is Daniel Jones. He hasn't been nearly as effective this year, but nonetheless, he is favored with his Giants at home -3 because they're hosting the Washington football team, which is a good feel-good story. Not that Kyle Allen got hurt, but that Alex Smith got to play. Just name comeback player of the year after Alex Smith. Just go ahead and do it.
Sure.
But I was terrified whenever he dropped back pass. But quite frankly, Giants fans are also terrified for Daniel Jones when he drops back pass. So what do you make of this game?
I don't know. I mean, it honestly is a coin flip. I think we saw. I mean, the Alex Smith story is amazing, and like what a comeback for a guy that faced like quite literally a life-threatening injury. But I think we saw with his play and with Kyle Allen's that I don't think it really matters who's in at quarterback for this Washington team. The offense is going to be bad regardless. I'm just going to take the home team. I'm going to take the Giants here. I think they're going to be able to put something together. I mean, we have no evidence of it, but I'll take them to get their first win of the year here against a pretty bad Washington offense.
Yeah, I was actually thinking the exact opposite. Both are bad teams, so I'll take the points and I'll take Washington.
There you go.
The Jets are a bad team without their best player, or at least their most expensive player, in Le'Veon Bell, who is now gone. That's not really going to change the outlook of this game or this line because he wasn't a factor since he got to New York. They go and play the Dolphins, who, again, just when you're down on them, they rally and give you an inspiring performance. But is that enough to make them favorites by 8.5 points? This line started at 9, now 8.5, as they're at home in the 4:05 Eastern matchup.
I'm not going to buy into all the Fitzmagic stuff because we know eventually that just wears off. But I do think it's big enough against a team like the Jets. I just won't pick the Jets until they show me anything worth picking.
Yeah, I mean, I think Adam Gase, in his aversion to pre-snap motion, his aversion to like the few good players that he has, I don't really see how this offense scores enough points, even if Fitzmagic is not as magical as he was a week ago. So I do think actually the Dolphins could cover it, and the score could be 14-0. Like that's what this game could be, because the Jets, quite frankly, like they should just be tanking for Trevor at this point, and not being overly concerned with how they are week to week. So I'll take Miami. Green Bay, they took a quarterback in the draft. They don't seem to need him right now as their Hall of Famer. Aaron Rodgers playing lights out, and he faces another Hall of Famer who is in a base, so to speak, in Tampa. Tom, Green Bay favored by 2 points in this one on the road. Which Hall of Famer are you leaning with in this one?
I'm thinking more and more that Green Bay's strategy in taking Jordan Love was to motivate Aaron Rodgers. Like that, like sure they might get a quarterback of the future, but it certainly seems like they knew that this was going to piss Aaron off, and now he's playing some of the best football of his career. And on the flip side, you know, I may have been a bit premature in saying that the Buccaneers were, you know, week by week taking strides, because last week we saw, you know, that this team and this offense especially is not on the same page. Lots of penalties, lots of injuries, and Tom Brady still isn't fully there with that offense. So on the flip side, with Aaron Rodgers, you know, pissed off as he is, they're playing amazing football right now, and he's on the same page with all those players on that team and that coaching staff. And given the way that they're playing, the inconsistency of the Bucs, and those injuries in Tampa, I would take Green Bay all day.
Yeah, Green Bay coming off a bye. Love them in this spot. You know, Le'Veon Bell, you know, very well might be playing for Tampa Bay by the time this game happens, but still the
just
best
bringing in all the running backs. So just
all the old running backs. Yeah, just Tom is just texting them all. But the best running back in the sport is, who's had the best season so far in the sport is Aaron Jones. And Aaron Rodgers is playing at an incredibly high level, only quarterback you know, to play in basically every start for his team and not throw an interception at this point. And Tom, although he's had some good moments, is still turning over the football, in some cases pick sixes. That will be a recipe for disaster against Aaron Rodgers. So I think the 2 points is very nice. I'll take that all day with Green Bay. This line to me is somewhat interesting because I get it, but I don't get it. San Francisco in the Sunday night are underdogs by 3.5 points to the Los Angeles Rams. San Francisco at home, and 80% of the public is pounding the Rams. Now, I get San Fran looked a mess last year, but they also were in the Super Bowl a year ago, and the Rams, quite frankly, were not. Are you on board with how the Rams have started the season, and are you starting to get off of the San Fran train as far as who's the best football team in the state?
I think so. I think the Niners have a real big quarterback problem. And a lot of Jimmy G's struggles on Sunday against the Dolphins can probably be put on the fact that he was probably rushed back a bit too quick from that ankle injury. But also, you know, some of the blame has to go to him. He made some really terrible decisions and threw some really bad interceptions in that game against the Dolphins. And on the flip side, the Rams are playing really good football. They're one of the league's most efficient offenses. They're a run-heavy team that's doing it effectively with a running back by committee in the backfield. And most importantly, the defense is really good. The defense is playing really well, and Aaron Donald is playing some of his most dominant football. I think he's on pace to break the sacks record, and this might be his most dominant early season performance yet. And, you know, this is like a 2 or 3 time defensive player of the year. Coming up against a Niners team that's not only banged up, but dealing with some problems at quarterback, I like the Rams in this spot. I think they can win this game by double digits.
Yeah, the Niners have yet to win at home this year. The record, it's not a disaster, but let's remember 2 of their wins came against the New York teams, the
Yeah,
Giants and the
yeah,
Jets. They haven't really put together good football. Now, quite frankly, they've been hurt, but quite frankly, they are hurt. And the Rams really have looked really good, and they've had a much more difficult schedule. And you mentioned the quarterback situation for San Fran. And what a mess. And maybe it's because Jimmy G is still not healthy coming off that high ankle and is sailing balls. But their quarterback position as a whole, 7 pass TDs in 5 games, a QBR of 44.8, which is good for 30th in the league. And as you mentioned, here comes Aaron Donald. Not a good look for a still hobbled Jimmy G or whoever else, whether it's Beathard or Nick Mullins who plays in his stead. The best quarterback in the sport is in Kansas City. If you listen to like Buffalo Talk Radio right now, you might think the best quarterback in the sport plays for their team, and it's Josh Allen. But he, I guess, maybe was brought down a peg or two after having a tough showing on Tuesday night. Although the Kansas City offense, is there a blueprint out for them if they've I don't want to say struggled, but had some times when they were in mud over the last 2 weeks, against the Raiders and the Patriots. KC favored by 3.5. Who do you like in 2 teams that expect to win their divisions and hopefully be playing in the conference championship?
I think what we saw for both of these teams are really uncharacteristic performances. I don't think this is who either of these teams are. Obviously, and I'm pretty confident in saying that both of these teams will be better in this game, which was supposed to take place on Thursday, but now is being played on Monday. But that being said, I'm kind of concerned about Buffalo's injuries. They clearly missed John Brown on offense Tuesday night against the Titans. They looked a little lost, as did Josh Allen. But more importantly, it's the injuries on defense. Trey White was not playing on Tuesday, and Levi Wallace was out. Matt Milano was also out, and you could tell they missed those guys. And Josh Norman covering Tyreek Hill after the Chiefs are coming off a pretty disappointing division loss is a recipe for disaster. And if White isn't back for this game on Monday, I'm really concerned that the Bills defense might really struggle here. And it's for that reason I'm going to take the Chiefs.
I'm going to take the Chiefs as well. And when you look at the 2 quarterbacks, as explosive as they both can be, every game there's going to be a couple plays that should be negative plays that Patrick Mahomes makes positive. And every game, as good as Josh Allen is in his early career, there's going to be a couple plays that should just keep you on script or maybe be slightly positive, and somehow they end up being negative. And you don't have that room for error against Mahomes. Derek Carr had to basically play pretty perfect to give his team a chance to win. And I don't think Allen is there yet in his career. I love Kansas City in a bounce back spot. And so I'll take Andy Reid's team in this spot. I was really, really looking forward to this game when the schedule came out. It's not just because I'm a Dallas Cowboys fan. It's because of the 2 fun and explosive quarterbacks. Well, one of them is not going to be playing the game. We all know Dak Prescott, compound fracture, dislocated ankle, pretty sad. His year is done. Kyler Murray is going to go head-to-head with Andy Dalton in this one, and the Cowboys at home in this second Monday nighter are 2.5-point underdogs. I'm somewhat surprised that the line is as close as it is, which shows you that I'm leaning Cards. Where are you leaning?
Yeah, I think this might be the toughest game to pick of the week because we really don't know what we're going to be getting from the Cowboys because there's so little to take from Andy Dalton coming in relief of Dak Prescott on Sunday and winning that game against the Giants. That said, I'm leaning with the home underdog. I think what we've seen from Dalton in the past is that when he's surrounded by really good playmakers, he's able to competently put together an offense that can put up some points. And the Cardinals, as good as the offense can be, I'm concerned about the defense. And now Chandler Jones is out for the year, which would be the biggest threat to Andy Dalton in this game. So I'm going to take the home underdogs, and I'm going to take the Cowboys to take care of business against a team that is probably exactly on their level. And I'm really interested to see what happens with Dalton and the offense and where they're going to go from here.
Yeah, I'm taking the Cardinals as well. And I'm pretty confident in that pick, but I'm not confident in my next pick, even though I have the entire board to choose from. And that's the Survivor pick. We've done pretty well in Survivor as well. We both were alive after last week. But which game are you leaning to in a real way more than the others? Because I'm looking at this board, and there's a lot that seem good on paper, but could be potential disasters. So what are you thinking?
For sure, there's a ton of unpredictability this year. I mean, I think that's why we should take the time while we still can to brag about the fact that we're a few games above 500, because it could change really quickly. And so when I look at the board, I'm kind of just going to go into what I have been doing for the last few weeks, and that is picking the team that's playing the Jets. And in this week, it's a team I normally wouldn't take in the Dolphins. So it's kind of a freebie here. So I'm going to take the Dolphins at home against a division rival who just isn't on the level of any other team in this league. So give me the Dolphins.
Yeah, I'm actually going to take the Dolphins as well. I know that's a bit of a cop-out.
Nice.
It doesn't really help you as the viewer to give you options. I will say I thought about Indy. That's a big spread at 8 points, but I just don't necessarily trust Phillip Rivers. I could see Burrow having a massive day in a game between two teams that are relatively close in proximity. The Tennessee-Houston in division is always tough. And again, short week for Tennessee. That could be a mess. And Deshaun Watson has a massive day, and Will Fuller decides that he's going to be a fantasy superstar. You'll lose that one, have to buy back in. So I'm going to say the team, and this again sounds crazy, that I trust the most would be the team playing the New York Jets. I trust that the New York Jets are going to be bad. That happens to be the Dolphins. And so it's not long ago, a year or two ago, I would say, stream the Dolphins, pick whoever they're playing. And now I'm saying I'm picking the Dolphins. Yeah. I'm streaming the Jets.
I'm pretty sure that's exactly what I did for the first 6 weeks of last season until I ended up getting burned. So I'm going to do the same with the Jets until I get burned. But like you said, don't take a risk at this point in the season with so many unpredictable games. Just pick the one that makes sense.
Yeah, listen, if you lose because the Jets won, you know what else happened? A lot of people in your pool lost because the Jets won.
And hell froze over.
Right, that too. So again, our super producer Drew Livingston is writing this down to be able to replay it to us, or just make fun of us via text. You can feel free to let us know what you think. Don't make fun of us via text in the comments, although you're probably going to anyways. Just me, not Gilo. But let us know what you like. Please favorite, share, subscribe, and let us know what games you really love. We love doing this for you. Thanks for watching.